So welcome to Game Design Document, or GDD. In this video, we'll talk about and create the concept rules and initial requirements for the game. In fact, it's going to be your challenge to write that stuff out once we've discussed the game a little bit. We'll iterate around a loop, by the way, while making this game, which I'll introduce you to in a moment. We'll be constantly asking what's least fun. So as we go around this loop of working on the terrain and the tank and the weapons and that sort of stuff, we'll keep coming full circle and saying what's least fun and trying to make sure that the thing is always getting more and more fun. All the time it's getting more fun, it's worth developing. Remember that we're not AAA studios here, right? We don't have $1 million art budgets. We need to try and do the best we can with our lower budgets and focus on our game being fun. So let's find the essence of the fun in this game, is basically what I'm saying. So we're gonna write out concept rules and requirements, but before we do, let's go and take a look at the research that we did from the last video. So I've played some World of Tanks. I've actually really enjoyed it, probably played it a bit longer than I should have done. Had a look at some tank videos, done all the things I've asked you to do, basically. Did you note how the controls work in World of Tanks? That the left stick moves your tank around in a forward, backwards, left, right sort of way, but that the gun stays pointing in the same position. Your right stick actually moves the gun aim point. So that's quite a novel form of control. We'll experiment with a few different ones before deciding for sure that this is what we want to do. So this is like a fly-by-wire tank that they're using, where the turret will always point in the same position unless you either tell it to point elsewhere or you climb up a piece of terrain that makes it impossible for the turret to point in that position. So it's quite interesting. It works quite well. It's certainly good for shooting. It doesn't really give you much of a sense of driving the tank, I don't feel. I would quite like to have independent speed control over the two tracks, perhaps on the two triggers on a controller. But you know, we can play with different types of control. But the general idea we're going to have is just single tank versus single tank in an open terrain, something like we're seeing here, with hills in the way so that we can get some cover. And you can take a certain number of shots before you're dead, and you'll have a simple indicator on the screen saying how much damage you've taken. And then the other tank will either be an AI or be another player on split screen, possibly on a second monitor, depending on how we get on. And the idea is to position yourself, get in range, and then shoot the other tank. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So what I'd like you to do is to write out what you think, in your words, the concept, rules, and requirements are for this game. And remember that the concept is just like a paragraph saying what it's all about. The rules are how you win, how you lose, what you're allowed to do, what you're not. And the requirements, think about sound effects, think about art, think about music, think about things like that. And then when you finished, come back, share those things, by the way, with your fellow students in the discussion so that we can see what your ideas are for the game. It'll also steer the direction of this section slightly for those people who are taking it as it's produced. And then pop back in and I'll talk you through my concept rules and requirements. Hey, welcome back. So I'm just going to say that the concept is a simple tank battle in an open world, and it's a head-to-head tank combat game. And the terrain will be used for tactical advantage, and the focus will be on flow and feel. We just want this to flow well and feel good. The rules, well, you can move anywhere in the terrain, which is surrounded by mountains, so you can't get out the terrain. Both players start with finite health and ammo, and each direct hit takes away health. And the last player standing wins. They're the simple rules. And the requirements. Well, sound effects wise, we're going to need a gun firing, an explosion, maybe the barrel going up and down, the turret moving, and the engine sound. Static meshes, well, we're going to need a simple tank comprising of tracks, body, turret, and barrel. But in the first place, I'm just going to use primitives inside Unreal, and we'll actually build up the mesh requirements later. Might buy in an asset, have some custom assets made. We'll see as we go through, but I want to show you how to start with just using primitive objects, just to test the control system and test the idea of your game. Later on, we want to add some textures for visual flair, and we want some sort of background music to create some tension in here, which will be fun, of course. Cool, so that's the GDD done. It's easy, isn't it, GDDs? They are worth doing. They don't take long, and they do make you think about what's involved. You probably never look at it again. You might look at it again and update it, but it's not to be stressed about, but it's definitely worth the exercise of just doing. So how are we going to build this game? Well, let's do an iterative cycle. Let's go round and round and round, making sure that it's always fun at every stage. So we'll build the world first. Just get a very simple terrain out there. Then we'll put something representing a tank. It'll probably start as just a cube, as a block. Then we'll think about the controls, because a block sitting on a world is a bit boring. So we'll think about how we're going to control this thing, and we'll try at least one, perhaps a couple of options for control schemes. Then we'll think about this player 2 thing, which is either a human player or an AI. We need something to shoot at, right? Even if it's not moving anywhere in the beginning. Then we'll get some basic user interface. We need to know whether the other player is nearly dead and how many bullets we've got left and when we can fire next. Before going back to the world and saying, right, the world's probably really boring, let's make it a bit more interesting, a bit more challenging, and then we'll keep going around the loop again and again and again. Weapon systems will be included over here in tank. Controls will be everything to do with controls. Player 2 is player 2 and AI. UI is user interface. So you get the idea. We're going to go around this loop again and again and again until we've decided our game is good enough for an initial shipping. So that is it. That's a game design document. That's pretty cool. Your challenge was earlier on. You've already written out your ideas. So if you haven't done it already, write and share your GDD. Write your understanding of the concepts, the rules, the requirements, and share your work with us. And I will see you in the next video where we'll actually set this project up in GitHub on the web this time, and take a little look at version control a bit more deeply before diving into the project.